Right. So the last hero to look into before the world premiere, right? Puffin. But there is, stark difference between Puffin, Gravy, and Marlin. So both Gravy and Marlin can do excessive things thanks to their unended ability, right? So, for instance, Gravy plays from the graveyard. So you have as many cards to play as you have cards in the graveyard. And then, of course, Marlin reloads every time they draw. So you can play as many cards as you can draw, especially since we have access to Purge Grappler. Whereas when it comes to Mech, well, action points have kind of been gutted, right? And so is their draw, although they used to feed into the generic draw, memory serves. I don't know, I've only started playing Mech, so generally speaking, combo-wise, right, there's nothing too crazy, I believe, right? I'm still looking, but, that might change with the cards that end up being released at the world premiere. I don't think so. I think we've seen the majority of the good stuff. If stuff comes out, obviously we will revisit Puffin, but as it stands, she's just consistent. And consistent is still good, right? So her main ability, second time you crank each turn, draw a card, meaning that, nice and simple. We have Crown of Dominion, we have Polly, so Puffin off of the gold is our first crank, and then Polly gets us to a nice 5-card hand. And the fact that you can obviously have a 5-card hand or that sort of starting point, so you can still block comfortably and still have, 2 to 3 cards that you should be able to catapult, right, into that extra card, should be really, really nice and consistent. But yeah, again, in terms of just, doing 300 plus damage like we did with Marlin, I don't think it's in the works, right? Although, what we can do here is Cog in the Machine, which is definitely a nice card. So Cog in the Machine does get us action points, which is what we want, right? So it's a double crank, meaning you do profit 1 action point. You can recycle it as well, so it's a continuous action point generator. So it's a really nice filler card for Mech across the board, since Cogs then feed into some of the other stuff that we have. But for us, we'll just pass and we'll just keep our stack of golden Cogs. So we'll play the other one as well, and then we do have Draw Back the Hammer, and these other untapped cards, which definitely is a nice effect, right? So Spitfire, one of the 2 weapons. The other one is tap and pay 2, right? And then tap a cog for go again. This is tap a cog for +1, but only tap the gun and a cog for an attack. So you don't have to invest any extra resource into Spitfire if you generate enough cogs, which we have, right? So off of our action point generation, our 5 golden cogs, we can then start shooting. So Spitfire, nice and easy, right? Tap a cog, give it +1. 3 damage, right? And then we can untap it with Draw Back the Hammer, which closes the chain, then untaps it, right? And then we can shoot again, do the same thing, tap both, so it's now 7. So 3, 7, they didn't block that time, interestingly, really, right? Blossom of Spring or Tunic. I don't know how well Foundry Heart's going to work, right? Because, again, depending on the card pool, we might move away from Boost just so that you can take the Pirates and you can take the generic stuff as well. So, yeah, Tekla Foundry Heart is probably up in the air, so it might just end up as Tunic, although Exodia Mech is another thing to argue then, right? If we move away from Boost, you have no real claws to destroy your Hyperdrivers, so just throwing them out and stacking them up for Nitro could be a thing, right? But then we just draw back the hammer again, and shoot one last time, and it's a 6, so that was 3, 7, 6. So 16, it's an average turn. Kind of feels rough, considering that's off of 5 cards, but yeah. I mean, we can continue digging for a little bit and see if Puffin has anything else, which then leaves something like this with Construct Nitro, where you're just throwing out 3 Hyperdrivers over the course of the game, right? And these are just going to amount to Construct Nitro value, right? In the late game, where you can, save something like Cog the Machine. You can find it easily with Construct Nitro. You can get to your 5 cards thanks to Puffin, and we just go Cog the Machine, right? Pitch, crank them for our action points and our extra draw. Do we want to cycle it? I guess, yeah, you want to continue to recycle Cog in the Machine, because it's just one pitchable, Cog in the Machine, Nitro, right? Over and over again. And that's a decent, way to wear down your opponent, I suppose, actually, thinking about it more. I should have actually put more cards in the deck to go over multiple turns, right? But then, yeah, Cog in the Machine again, crank, so right, 3 action points, again, send it back to the bottom of the deck, and then construct Nitro, and we get our Mechanoids with our 3 Hyperdrivers, 3 action points, so then we just go Nitro, right, 3 times. Nice and simple. 1, 2, and then 3. Is Puffin meant to be there? That's the curiosity. Also, galvanic benders are a thing. I don't have the other side. Let me redo it so we can do an extended turn, right? To see how far we can wear down our opponent. So, I mean, technically, if this is kind of a workable strategy, again, we're not taking any boost. All of these will float for all of existence unless our opponent disrupts them. We're also not boosting, which means taking Evos is a little bit better, right? Because we can take single copies and again, really hope to find them. So if we are going into a fatigue match where we're taking, generic defense reactions, doing essentially what Dash IE's been doing, we could then, again, have a turn like this where we have our hyperdriver set up, our opponent's attacking, we can get the value out of the Evo breakers in terms of their instance. That is the wrong trigger. Then Cog of the machine. Yeah, beautiful. Right, so instance or reaction, I guess, works too. Right, we just sync 2 to each. That'll do. Right, so that's already more charges for Nitro. And then we go to the next one, and we do that again. So 2. And then however many passes it takes. I guess I'm passing on each hyperdriver. Yeah, that's what it must be. I'm passing on each hyperdriver, weirdly, right? So it still leaves 3 for our Nitro, and we now have prevents. It's 4 apiece, right? So decent amount of prevent out of the Evo circuit breakers. Again, using the hyperdrivers as fodder. Depends how much extra action point generation there is, right? We can't crank the hyperdrivers, and I don't think there'll be enough Soul Mech support for, say, Max, right, to do something like this. I think Puffin can work it in because the pirate cards seem to be really good value, right? Especially favoring mid-range to fatigue. But from here, pass. Now we're a little bit at our opponent's folly. We'll skip the arsenal, take our damage, and then of course we can go into the same combo where we go Cog of the machine, we pitch, we crank, we get our extra card, which is our pitchable, into our Nitro. We tap, so it goes back to the bottom of the deck, and this happens before the pitch, so it means we'll draw into them before our actual pitch resolves, which is important for us to actually loop this, right? Which is actually something you can endlessly do now with Nitro, which is actually kind of exciting, right? So crank, tap to bottom, and then Nitro, pitch. I didn't read it again. I'll look at it afterwards, right? Does it show on this side? No. Because it does. Does it yoink Poly? It yoinked Poly when Poly was on our perch. I guess because it counts as a offhand weapon, right? Anyway, so 18 charges, right? 3 action points, so we swing. And we have the Galvanic Bender, so we just make sure that's the last thing we do. So it's 6 overpower, so we're doing 18 a turn, currently, which is nice, right? And then from there, we pass, we get our pitch, and we have 3 Cog machines with a pitchable. And again, these will always bottom. So at this point, with the 1 pitchable left, right, it will always go Cog of the machine, pitchable, Cog of the machine, pitchable, right? We will always be able to play all 3. And again, just use Nitro until we run out. And this is actually, I'm talking myself into it now as something I actually want to try, right? As just Nitro Puffin, just whamming 18 charges at this point, right? Seeing how well we can do. Now, if only there was a way to put Cogs under it. But yeah, so this time around we have 4 action points. So this time we're sending 24, right? And then we can do that comfortably for 3-4 more turns. I got rid of the benders. So you get the point, right? This is actually an interesting fatigue win con, right? To get down to this low of a deck and then just Nitro swing and just cycle the Cogs. And you throw in some of the Galvanize or some of the, was it the Golden Sky Warden, where you can utilize the Cogs for something else? An interesting idea, actually. Maybe Puffin does have something of interest, right? I have to see what cards Max can utilize. The cranking. Does the cranking super help? The cranking helps you just put out more hype drivers. So if in the case of Fatigue Puffin, it's basically just normal mech things, no boosting, throw out a hype driver, end your turn, right? And you're just stacking up the hype drivers till you're getting the payoff. It sounds interesting at the very least, right? But yeah, there we go. Puffin. Hope you enjoyed. So yeah, actually, one last thing to add, right? Since we did the whole stack up gold for Gravy, we might as well do it for Puffin. Ceiling, a lot lower, 16 gold, right? No Chart the High Seas, no Necromancer, gold generation. We've got starting stake, right? Into Portside Exchange, Fool's Gold, into Loan Shark, into Sunken Treasure to get to a maximum-ish of 16 gold, but still, we can put this to work again with the fact that we have Nitro and Cog in the machine endlessly rotating. So, on our first turn, right, going into Nitro, we Nitro. That is always wrong because I need the extra resource. We Cog in the machine, right? Pitch. We crank, and tap to cycle it back, right? That gets us our extra card. So then we can Cog in the machine, do it again, crank, and tap. And then, of course, go into Nitro, pitch our Cog, and so far we have ourselves 3 action points, right? And a total of 18 charges overall. So we can send the first lot, right? So that we're still doing something, damning to our opponent, trying to force them to empty their hand a bit, right? And that way we can keep all our cards going into our following turn to then try and close out the game with a devastating Nitro barrage, right? So from there, we have Cog in the Machine and our pitfalls, and here is where my brain starts to hurt, because we have to factor in Puffin, and then also splitting the gold stack, right? So half the gold needs to go to generating a bigger hand, and then half the gold has to go to Cog in the Machine. Cog in the Machine costs 1, so a pitch into gold to draw Cog in the Machine is perfect, right? That rounds it out, but we lose the card. So we have to build up our hand, then Cog in the Machine. So we can do the first one, though. So we'll do Cog in the Machine, right? Pitch, and then, of course, double crank, which gets us the card back from Puffin. Beautiful. And then the tap to put to the bottom. Then we gold. We're still at 4, and now we have to build our hand. So just the usual gold into blues until we find our 3 Cog in the Machines, please. Right? And then hopefully we should be left with around half the gold. 7-ish, I think, is what I worked out. Again, doing the longevity math, if you will. Especially factoring Puffin's ability can be a little bit of a headache. So one more gets us another gold, but not the other cog. So keep going. I think I keep going, right? Yeah. Then we go Cog in the Machine, hitch, crank, crank, double tap. And now it's just about trying to get to a nice plethora of action points. Crank, crank, tap, gold, gold. Oh, there we go. Gold. Beautiful. Cog in the Machine, hitch, crank, crank, tap, gold, Cog in the Machine, hitch. Yes, beautiful. And this should get us a nice, hefty amount of swings, although not endless amounts, right? But we're just cycling the Cog in the Machines at this point. Yeah, 3, 3. So this is our last one, right? Cog in the Machine, copper, crank, crank. And now, unfortunately, we don't have the resources to go into one more. So, in total, that's 8 action points plus our Gold Kiss Rum, right? So we can Gold Kiss Rum since we're not using Puffin. Although, no, there's no point to the crank. I might as well draw the card to Arsenal, right? But then we Nitro. We make sure not to get rid of the Galvanic Benders, so 6. And we just keep going until our opponent is a nice, healthy pancake. And then the fun part, even though we don't, at this point, have the gold to continue it, we can still, again, go into, 3 Cog in the Machine turns, right? Comfortably. Since, again, they will... Oh, no, because I'll go to the bottom now. We can get one more turn of a nice, comfortable Cog in the Machine. Although we are running out of resources on Nitro anyway as well, right? But I would hope that this is enough to KO the opponent, right? So, yeah, Polly can go, and Spitfire can go. So 6 charges left, but a nice big turn, and then stick all the cogs. Eventually, oh, there we go. Arsenal that, draw the other 2. Take our licks if they're still alive, right? Or use Nitro to defend. And then Cog in the Machine, pitch, crank. And I suppose I just start emptying the cogs as well, right? And we're just trying to get down to 1 Cog in the Machine. Although Nitro will be heavily exhausted at that point anyway, right? But still, there's an extra 4 swings for us, I believe, right? Yeah, extra 4 swings. So hopefully that does the trick. We'll look at... I always get rid of the Galvanic Benders because it's first, right? So I go to click it first. Hyperdriver. We'll play out the damage just because I want to see what is it back to back. And lucky last. Well, I should probably have played one of the cogs. Right, done. Let's see. That was a nice 54 into 24. So again, not gravy or Marlin numbers that we can get to, but I don't know. I'm sort of digging this as a fatigue win con. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.